The Switch 2 is officially in its sophomore year, and we've already gotten great games this year like Pokemon Pokopia, Resident Evil Requiem, and Mina the Hollower, but there's so much more coming for the rest of 2026, and if you're wondering what's next, here's a look at 40 games that are coming to Switch 2 before the end of the year. Up first is Denshattack, the Jet Set Radio and Tony Hawk hybrid where you trade in your skateboard for a train car. You ollie, kickflip, and grind from rail to rail across a bright neon depiction of Japan. I've been looking forward to this one for a couple of years, so I'm thrilled it's finally coming to Switch 2. It's like Subway Surfers, but you're the subway. That's coming to Switch 2 on July 15th, and there's a demo on the eShop now if you want to try it out early. The next day, Culdcept Begins comes to both Switch 1 and Switch 2. This is a strategy game that combines board and card games, where you claim territories across the board with dice while battling and building your strength with cards. This is the first new Culdcept game since 2016. Fitness Boxing 3 Your Personal Trainer has been out for a while on Switch 1, but on July 16th it gets its own Nintendo Switch 2 edition. This rhythm fitness hybrid is punching up on Switch 2 with enhanced resolution and frame rate, a new advanced scoring mode that rewards you for perfect timing on your hits, game share, and support for those of you that own the Nintendo Switch 2 camera and want to see yourself box on screen. In what seems like one of the smartest crossovers I can think of, Star Wars is coming to Powerwash Simulator 2 on July 16th. You play as a Class 5 cleaning droid who cleans up classic Star Wars vehicles and locations during the events of the original trilogy. And there's definitely a lot to clean up because the Star Wars galaxy is covered in sand, which is coarse and rough and irritating and gets everywhere. Heave Ho 2 is the sequel to one of my favorite indie games on Switch 1. It's a physics-based cooperative platformer where you use your lanky arms to swing and hurl your friends from platform to platform, and it's a hilarious time with a group of friends. And Heave Ho 2 is adding online play into the mix. That's out on Switch 1 and Switch 2 on July 16th. Ratatan is an indie roguelike take on the Patapon series, coming to Switch 2 on July 16th. If you've never played Patapon, it's kind of a blend of a rhythm game and Pikmin, where you command an army of dozens of little guys by hitting different actions on the right beat. On July 23rd, Avatar Legends, the fighting game, is coming to both Switches. This hand-drawn fighter looks great, and it's kicking off a big week for The Last Airbender fans, as the Avatar Aang movie is coming to Paramount Plus just a couple days later on the 25th, although I hear lots of Avatar fans have already seen that movie somehow. Disgaea Mayhem presents a new look at the long-running RPG series, with hack-and-slash action taking the place of the turn-based strategy combat. That's coming to Switch and Switch 2 on July 23rd. On the same day, we're getting my most anticipated game of the summer, Splatoon Raiders. This is the first ever spin-off in the Splatoon series, and it's focused on single-player treasure raids against hordes of salmonid enemies. It looks like Splatoon mixed with elements of Monster Hunter, Borderlands, and Diablo. And if you want to play with friends, it does support online and local 4-player co-op. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Nintendo Switch 2 Edition gives a much-needed performance update to the 2017 RPG on July 30th. It adds support for 4K resolution and 60 frames per second, as well as brand new battle mode where you take direct control of your Blade characters. With Xenoblade Genesis coming next year, Nintendo is giving you a chance to catch up on the whole series before then with these Switch 2 editions, as long as you have around 200 hours to spare. That brings us to August, which kicks off with Big Walk, a cooperative puzzle game from House, the makers of Untitled Goose Game. You can play with between 2 and 12 people, communicating to solve puzzles with proximity chat, walkie-talkies, megaphones, and more. That's out on Switch 2 on August 4th. Switch 2 is getting a bunch of complete ports of popular games from the last few years, and that includes Lies of P Complete Edition. This is Brian Altano's favorite non-From Software Souls-like game of all time, which is a very high recommendation, and the Complete Edition includes the base game and the Overture expansion. Brigandine Abyss is a strategy RPG coming to Switch 2 on August 27th, and it features 6 unique campaigns where you follow one of 6 factions waging war against an invading empire. And there's a mission mode where you can take on challenges with one of 24 different factions. That's a lot of bang for your buck. Final Fantasy XIV Online, A Realm Reborn, is finally coming to a Nintendo platform when it launches on Switch 2 on August 27th. This MMO has been getting tons of support from Square Enix for years at this point, and Nintendo players will be able to choose between a standard controller or a traditional mouse and keyboard setup. Since it's an MMO, you will need a subscription separate from Nintendo Switch Online to play. On the same day, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2 hit Switch 2, bringing enhanced versions of the PSP's Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker and the PS3's Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots to modern consoles. This is a big deal, as it marks the first time Metal Gear Solid 4 has ever been re-released since its original launch in 2008, due to the PS3's tricky architecture making it notoriously difficult to port. Finally in August, Elden Ring Tarnished Edition lands on Switch 2 on the 28th. From Software's open-world masterpiece was announced way back at the Switch 2 premiere event more than a year ago, and after a delay to this year, I'm excited to see how this one shapes up. Early impressions of the Switch 2 port were rough, but later versions seemed much improved, and with the extra months of optimization, hopefully this will be a great way to experience one of this generation's defining games. If you like It Takes Two and Split Fiction, you'll want to pay attention to Orbitals, the upcoming Switch 2 exclusive that fuses two-player co-op gameplay with a beautiful anime-inspired aesthetic. The Global Friends Pass means only one person has to buy the game to play in full two-person co-op. That's out on Switch 2 on September 3rd. Wo Long Fallen Dynasty is a Souls-like from Team Ninja, and its complete edition is coming to Switch 2 on September 3rd. That includes the base game and all 3 DLC packs. Capcom's support of Switch 2 has been excellent so far, as this year alone we've gotten versions of Resident Evil Requiem, Monster Hunter Stories 3, and Pragmata, and on September 4th, Onimusha Way of the Sword joins the party. This revival is the first Onimusha game in 20 years, and it's looking like a great comeback so far. If you're around my age, then you remember when RuneScape was the biggest game on the planet in elementary school computer labs in the early 2000s. Now the series is back with RuneScape Dragonwilds, a survival crafting game set in the same world that's set to make its way to Switch 2 on September 15th. Nintendo's big September game is Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, which is out on Switch 2 on September 17th. This looks like a follow-up to Three Houses in all the right ways. You choose between one of 4 protagonists to follow as you fight in grid-based tactics battles while growing your unit's strengths and relationships while off the battlefield. Its Coliseum tournament setting is looking fantastic too. On the same day as Trails in the Sky second chapter, the remake of Trails in the Sky 2 that's coming to Switch and Switch 2. The remake of the first chapter was a gorgeous modernization of the original RPG, and I've got no reason to believe second chapter will be any different. LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight came out on other platforms earlier this year, and it gets a Switch 2 version on September 18th. It tells a story that pulls from across Batman history, from the comics to all eras of the movies, and it's a great LEGO parody of all things Gotham. Dragon Quest XI's Echoes of an Elusive Age is my favorite RPG ever, and it's finally coming to Switch 2 on September 24th. Unfortunately, there is no upgrade path or save data transfer if you already own the game on Switch 1, but if you've never jumped in before, the Switch 2 version will be an enhanced way to play what I consider to be the peak of the Dragon Quest series. It has excellent classic turn-based combat, and one of its defining features is the ability to swap between full 3D graphics and top-down pixel art that calls back to the series' Super Nintendo era. Hot Wheels Infinite Rush looks like a toy-based take on Forza Horizon, as you'll drive Hot Wheels all around 4 islands filled with races, challenges, and stunts. That's out on Switch 2 on September 24th. Rounding up the month on the 29th is Minecraft Dungeons 2, the follow-up to Minecraft's Diablo-like action RPG. This time, there's a new overworld map to go along with new gear, bosses, and enemies. October is a crazy month as everyone tries to get their game out ahead of Grand Theft Auto 6, and that starts on the very first day of the month with Dynasty Warriors 3 Complete Edition Remastered, an enhanced version of the classic Musou game from 2001. You can take on the 1 versus 1,000 battles with a friend in offline 2-player split screen, which I suppose makes it 2 versus 1,000. Also on the 1st, Ubisoft is bringing back one of its most iconic games and mascots with Rayman Legends Retold, a remake of the 2D platformer with a new 3D art style. Rayman Legends was one of the best games on the Wii U and all the other platforms it came to, and this remake includes Rayman Origins Enhanced as a bonus, another delightful 2D platformer that predates the original Legends by a few years. Kingdom Hearts came to the original Switch by way of cloud versions that weren't received all that well, but Square Enix is righting that wrong by releasing basically the entire series on Switch 2. On October 8th, you can grab the Kingdom Hearts Collection, which includes Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 and 2.5 Remix, Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, and Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. Square is offering a discount for anyone who bought those pesky cloud versions all those years ago, and now that we know Kingdom Hearts 4 is coming to Switch 2, this is your chance to catch up. Yet another Capcom game coming to Switch 2 is Dragon's Dogma 2 Dark Arisen, which launches on October 9th. This is an expanded version of the 2024 RPG, which features brutal combat and lots of open exploration in a gorgeous fantasy world. Dark Arisen introduces a new territory to explore and updates to the endgame and combat systems. Final Fantasy Resonance is the first ever Final Fantasy game built with the HD 2D art style seen in Octopath Traveler, Triangle Strategy, and many others. A reimagining of the mobile game Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, Resonance features turn-based combat with summonable characters from across the Final Fantasy series. That's on both Switches on October 22nd. Woohoo Island lovers rejoice, because Nintendo Switch Sports Resort is going back to the iconic location from Wii Sports Resort on October 22nd. It features 12 sports: tennis, bowling, archery, boxing, volleyball, table tennis, basketball, golf, prop playing, skateboarding, power cruising, and as we saw too much of in June's Nintendo Direct, thumb wrestling. I can't wait to go back to Woohoo Island. I just wish this was a summer game instead of a fall one. Call of Duty returns to a Nintendo platform for the first time in over a decade when Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 comes to Switch 2 on October 23rd. The last Call of Duty on Nintendo was 2013's Call of Duty Ghosts on Wii U. That had to be one of the worst selling SKUs of any Call of Duty game ever, and there's no doubt Modern Warfare 4 will fare much better on Switch 2. One Piece Grand Gourmet is coming to Switch and Switch 2 on the same day, combining the popular anime and manga with a restaurant management simulation as you work to create the best restaurant on the high seas. Featuring dozens of One Piece characters from across the series, this is a buffet for series fans and a potential gateway to the series for those that just want to build a cozy restaurant. Hello Kitty Party Land is Sanrio's take on Mario Party, coming to Switch and Switch 2 on October 29th. It will feature well over 100 Sanrio characters competing in board game and minigame modes with support for up to 4 players. November is pretty barren at the moment because of a game not coming to Switch called Grand Theft Auto 6. But that doesn't mean there's nothing, because on November 3rd, Melee is back. Not Super Smash Bros., but Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee Remastered on Switch 2. This remaster of the 2002 fighter adds online multiplayer, so you can fight as giant kaiju with your friends across the world. Metaphor ReFantazio won IGN's Game of the Year award in 2024, and Nintendo players can experience it for themselves when it launches on Switch 2 on November 12th. This turn-based RPG has all the style of Persona, but in a completely new fantasy world, and this is a great fit for Nintendo's hybrid console. Dragon Quest Monsters: The Withered World is the next entry in the creature collecting spin-off series, and this one features characters from Dragon Quest V: Hand of the Heavenly Bride. That's out on Switch and Switch 2 on December 3rd. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Nintendo Switch 2 Edition rounds out the trilogy of Switch 2 enhancements, adding 4K resolution and 60 frames per second, as well as a new hero to recruit, additional voice acting, and more. This is my favorite entry in the Xenoblade series, and I'm excited to see a better version of it on Switch 2. That rounds out everything with concrete release dates, but there's plenty coming at some point this year we don't have exact details on yet. Professor Layton and the New World of Steam brings the puzzle series back to the spotlight after years away, while 007 First Light will land on Switch 2 later this year after a successful launch on other platforms a few months back. We're still waiting on a date for the Duskbloods, From Software's multiplayer-focused Switch 2 exclusive that's getting a network test this summer. And finally, I can't end this video without mentioning The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It's easily my most anticipated game right now, and the remake is coming to Switch 2 sometime before the end of the year. And that's it. Which Switch 2 game are you most excited to play? Drop a comment and let us know. Thank you so much to Amanda, Nick, and Michael for making this video happen, and thank you so much for watching. For your weekly dose of Nintendo news, check out Nintendo Voice Chat, the weekly podcast I host every Friday over on the IGN Games YouTube channel. And if you want to see all of these games and track your entire video game library, download the Playlist app on iOS or Android. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.